Good morning, everyone. Hey, so for the next couple of hours, I would like you all to forget what you're doing after 10 a.m. today. Let's have some fun. Let's indulge our imaginations, and let's gather some ideas and think about what the future of our jobs are, future of retail, future of what we do every day. So I'm pretty chuffed to be the opening act to 3 absolute rock stars that you have coming after me. And I see my role as really the tech geek. So I spend my days designing, coding, building with technology, and also nerding over white papers and gathering different insights about what's happening in the future of technology. And I would like to share 3 game-changing themes with you this morning. And each one has baked into it several new interesting technologies, some of which you have heard of that are quite mainstream, and others are pretty new. So first and foremost, the first theme I'm going to talk to you about this morning is the Internet of Things. So that is the internet weaving its way off of our screens and into our physical devices. So not just phones and laptops, but also other bits of hardware, niche hardware. The second theme I'm going to talk to you about this morning is I've called decentralized. So there are 2 technologies that are key to this theme. One you may not have heard of. It's called the blockchain. And the most famous application of the blockchain is a digital currency called Bitcoin, which I'll talk to you more about. And the second kind of technology that is really fueling this theme is decentralized manufacturing. So things like 3D printing and laser cutting. Digital manufacturing, which is enabling us to go from a very mass manufacturing of things to a small-scale manufacturing of things. The third theme I'm going to talk to you about is right here and now. It's not really a future technology. It's something that's in process of happening. And that is called open. So lots of different technologies here. A few new notions like open data and transparency are fueling this trend. So before we talk about these 3 themes and technology, I think it's pretty important that we talk about retail and why is retail so cool and why are these technologies so relevant to it. So for me, I think retail is about a physical experience. And we saw over the past 10 years a huge disruption in retail by the internet. So the ability to buy and sell things online caused a humongous disruption, a very change in the notion of the business metrics of retail. But retail is also an interface, and it's a tactile interface. It's an amazing way that we can interact with products in their physical form, but also with a brand, with people, with visuals, with installations, with our peers in a space. And I think this is by far the most important point. And that is the most important thing that we'll discuss all morning is not different technologies and how they're built. It is people. Technologies won't be adopted, they won't happen if we don't have people on board and people using them and the user experience correct. And people are quite fickle. So there's a whole generation of people that if you say the word Paris and you ask them to think of the first word they think of, they say Paris Hilton, not Paris, France. Amazing. And really, when we start to think about technology and people and retail spaces, a key thing to have in your mind the whole time is value. People are coming into a store and coming to look for something because they want to gain value. And value is a difficult notion because value is completely different for each of us. Some of us value what our peers value. Some of us value brand above all else. Some of us are just looking to buy the cheapest possible thing. Very different notions of what we value and what we want to experience when we come into a shopping environment. So let's kick off with the first theme, the Internet of Things. So we used to have one of these on our desks. This was the way you found out who you were going to call and found out your contact information of your colleagues or other people you've met. Rolodex sitting on your desk. You used to have a calendar on the wall, and that was the way you managed your diary. And we used to have music on our shelves and a watch on our wrist. all these physical things that helped us lead our lives. And then one day, not that long ago, they all just started converging into one physical device. All of these physical things became applications on our mobile phones, a convergence of functionality on one physical thing, which sort of, you'd say in theory, led to less stuff, because you don't need the calendar on the wall, you don't need the Rolodex on your desk, everything's in here. But the trouble is, we're tactile beings. We like to explore the physical world. We don't necessarily always like to be pored over just one tiny screen. And this is why we're at an incredibly exciting time, because currently there are almost 20 billion connected devices. So that's a lot more than one phone and laptop per person on the planet. And this is increasing. So more and more of our objects are being connected to the internet. So 25 billion will be next year, and then by 2020, there'll be 50 billion devices all over the world that are connected to the internet. So not just phones, not just laptops, but other stuff. So we call this divergence of the internet out of our screens and into hardware, the Internet of Things. And this is incredibly exciting, because it not only means we gain back all that stuff, we could gain back the Rolodex on our desk, we could gain back physical manifestations of music, calendar on our wall, but this time they have a digital beating heart, so an interoperability, an ability to talk to each other. And the possibilities with this are really endless. So we've seen this already. There's quite a few connected devices. So things that are niche hardware that connect to our mobile phones, that allow us to perhaps talk easier, perhaps pay for things a little bit easier. This is Square. Perhaps control the heat in our house, or have that controlled for us, depending on our previous behavior. This is Nest. Wi-Fi connected light bulbs. We've all seen these. They can talk to each other. They can come on automatically when you're not at home. Lots of different bits of functionality that the traditional light bulb didn't have, because now they have this digital beating heart. But we're also seeing new stuff. And this is where it gets really exciting. So this is Mica, which was a collaboration between Opening Ceremony, which is a fantastic store, and Intel. And they created a piece of jewelry. Just a beautifully designed piece of jewelry. The person that opened Opening Ceremony is a fantastic creative director. And they designed this piece of jewelry to have the ability to show you text messages, what's going on your digital world, right there on your wrist. And of course, we've seen Apple have got their watch out, and various other people. Wearables are becoming a really fantastic addition to the niche hardware families. But we're also seeing all kinds of new applications. So things like, this is a light switch that's controlled by an orchid. So you can turn the brightness up on your lighting at home by just touching the top leaves of this flower. And then if you want to have some mood lighting, you touch near the base stem. Or totally new applications. So this is a pair of shoes that help you get home. So you've had a bit of a night out, trying to wonder which way your house is. Keep moving your shoes. It's like the new Dorothy. Keep moving your shoes until eventually, oh yeah, green, walk. I'm just queuing up for one of these. So for me, the most exciting thing about this trend isn't all this new stuff that's coming out, even though I totally love that and I want it all. It's the fact that the cost of creating hardware is just plummeting so fast. It is becoming so amazingly democratic for people to create these devices. And in fact, most of these devices are powered by simple off-the-shelf hardware. This, for example, is one such component. This is the Raspberry Pi, which is a credit card-sized computer. It costs $25. In fact, I think it's even less now. $25. It's got around the power of an iPhone 4. So pretty decent for 25 bucks. And yeah, essentially, this little component that's, credit card size could power all of those different devices and installations I just showed you. Really exciting to be able to create all of this stuff so easily. And also the accessibility to working with these components is also going down every day. You don't need to have an engineering degree or be a hardware engineer in order to create some of these amazing internet-connected devices. Exciting times. So the second technology-fueled theme I want to talk to you about this morning is perhaps lesser known. I'm sure you've seen all these connected devices in the Internet of Things, in Wired, or whatever blogs you might read. But this trend is still bubbling up through the surface. This is kind of a new thing. So I've called this theme Decentralization. And one of the key technologies we're going to talk about in decentralization is the blockchain. Now, can I get a bit of a show of hands who has heard of or maybe even used Bitcoin? Cool, a few people, great. Okay, so Bitcoin, lots of people shaking their heads, because it has a bit of a bad rep. See, Bitcoin rose to fame through being the payment method on a highly illegal internet site called the Silk Road, which was used to buy drugs and various other bad things. So this gave it a really bad rep. It also had another bad rep because it was founded by an anonymous Japanese man called Satoshi. So it had all these kind of crazy, secretive, this is a bad thing notion around it. So what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a fully decentralized currency. It's a digital currency. And what that means is there's no bank, which sounds, again, incredibly unsafe and ludicrous. It's not incredibly unsafe or ludicrous. Bitcoin runs on a peer-to-peer network. It is policed by the people that use it. It is policed by the people that create it. Not a centralized bank with their ledgers checking every single transaction, but the whole community checking every single transaction. And this is a map of the retailers that have adopted it recently. So you can see that it's starting to filter its way around the world and becoming a payment method in stores, in pubs, in bars. And there's also Bitcoin ATMs as well. So how is this possible? And how is this even safe? So Bitcoin is one of the most famous examples of an application that runs on a technology called the blockchain. And what the blockchain is the world's first immutable database. So it's a database that cannot be changed. And this might sound just geeky and irrelevant, but actually it has humongous implications for how we do business. It has humongous implications for security and safety and just the ability of transferring information all over the world. It means you no longer need a bank. You no longer need someone to broker all of your information. You might no longer need a big central office to broker all your information either. I'm talking kind of 10, 20 years into the future, but this technology is really laying the foundation for massive capability for local autonomy. It's very exciting. And part of this is, as I mentioned, Bitcoin, the first application of this technology. And there are several other applications of this technology. And in fact, every single day, people are creating more and more decentralized applications, nicknamed dApps. And just as we saw with mobile phones converging a lot of our physical functionality and capability from our records to our rotodexes into our phone, this has the capability to be just as disruptive. It's a new era for applications, a new way that they are governed and operate. So within this same theme, decentralization, we're also seeing other technologies that are also incredibly powerful. Not just the blockchain powering decentralization, but also other kinds of things. So one particularly disruptive technology that's also part of this theme is digital fabrication. So this is the ability for people to simply download a design and make it at home on a 3D printer. So this is just an example of one such thing. And this has amazing implications for how we create things. So we're used to having a very centralized manufacturing system. And we're used to this being the lowest cost, most effective way to do things. And for definitely the next few years, that still will be the case, particularly as shipping also plummets in cost. However, counter to that, there is this rising trend in small-scale manufacturing and the capabilities to make that incredibly cost-effective. In fact, the capabilities to make things or customize things in store is becoming rapidly a reality, and we've already seen it through a few concept stores. Now, I find this aspect of this theme incredibly interesting, not just because of how we create things and how we might create things in the future, but also how we recycle things and how we think about the materials that we have within a society. We're very used to going out and consuming, buying stuff, taking it home, using it, wearing it a few times, and then kind of not really knowing what to do with it, attempting to recycle it and it being a bit of a fail. But what decentralized manufacture means is there could also be an element of recycling happening within a local community. And by recycling, I mean full remanufacture happening within a community. So this is just an image of someone gathering parts off of a PCB, so something that was powering either a TV or... and I think what's interesting here is we may start designing products for this cycle, this circular economy, this local making and harvesting of materials. And perhaps that might lead to, again, new business models that we're already seeing infiltrate our society. So things like a renting model. I mean, for years, Rolls-Royce have been renting their engines rather than selling them. They call it power by the hour. You rent an engine, you don't buy one from Rolls-Royce, because they know the value of the materials. And they know that if they're going to just keep improving the design and the efficiency, that renting is a really great method to do that. But we're seeing renting moving into lots of other things. So Zipcar, Drive Now, lots of programs where you just rent your BMW, you don't buy one. And I think we will see this definitely come into a lot more consumer products. And particularly if these products can be returned and remanufactured into other things, completely disrupting how we do business, really. So for me, this trend really is starting to set the way for a very decentralized future rather than a highly centralized one. And what does this mean for retail? Now, I think it's kind of interesting. I think this could be a sort of like going back in time. It's like recreating a very localized, locally controlled high street, which almost feels a bit medieval these days. But I think that's what's really exciting about this. It's paving the way for a very locally controlled, locally operated, new kind of retail. Very exciting. So the third theme I wanted to talk to you about is open. Now, this isn't really about future technology. This is about technologies that are happening right now. So a few years ago, Nike opened up a list of 777 suppliers that they use worldwide to make their trainers and sports goods. They revealed the details of over 1 million different workers they had working for them. In a big Excel spreadsheet, you could just download it and have it on your computer. Huge amount of data, proprietary data from a company. You just think, why? Why would you do that? What a strange behavior, opening up all of this information and having it just be readily available right there. You could go on, you could even explore this map and zoom right in and see where their manufacturing plant was. What a strange thing to do. We're so used to business being often about asymmetry of knowledge and profit being gained through that asymmetry of knowledge. But this seems really counter to that. But Nike weren't the only person to do this. Apple also did it, H&M, and we're seeing lots and lots of people open up their company information voluntarily. So why? Why would they do this? Is it because they're afraid Julian Assange is going to do it first? Possibly, potentially. Is it because they were inspired by the open source software community? Again, possibly. This is the logo for Linux, which is actually the most powerful operating system in the world. It's not particularly popular on consumer computers. We're all used to using our iOS and our Windows. But Linux actually powers a lot of the sort of engine of the internet and backroom servers in large companies. And it was adopted by IBM. IBM decided rather than make our own operating system for this, we are going to jump on the bandwagon with all these volunteers that are openly making an operating system. And Linux was a fantastic success and has proved that actually having a more open approach in the creation of software particularly can de-risk and also hugely increase value. So perhaps Nike was inspired by this. Or perhaps they thought, by being just a little bit more open, this is a way to get better. So Nike, of course, in the 90s, and perhaps even previously before that, there were riots and people stampeding because of sweatshops, because people believed Nike were making things in an unethical way. I don't know if that's true, but that happened. And I think what Nike's doing here, which is interesting, is by being completely open, they are opening themselves up to people to contest what they're doing, but they're also saying, well, now we can talk about being ethical or sustainable and actually have some data to back that up, and have the press can just go and visit our factories if they want because they can see this. Now again, I don't know whether Nike are ethical still, but at least they took some steps to opening up their information and getting people to see what they're doing. And this is something we're seeing more and more in retail and in how we buy things. Kickstarter, fantastic example, because Kickstarter really is sort of an e-commerce concept. You go on there to acquire something, pretty much, but the method you do that is through supporting it. So you don't just buy the product, although more and more it seems like that's exactly what you're doing. You go to support the product, and what you have to guide that is a video that's usually sort of a selfie shot video of the person that's going to make this product saying, hey, here I am, here's my team, we want to make this thing, who's with me? And you go, yeah, I'm with you, cool, yeah, I'll buy that, great. But there's no art director and copywriter, really. It's just the genuine founder of the company saying, I want to do this, this is good for these reasons. Want to be part of it, yes or no? Couldn't really get any more open. And the truth is, every single product, doesn't matter if it's on Kickstarter, whatever, it has a story. It's been on a journey of people, of places, and of raw materials. Yet, often at the point of sale, these incredible stories are just not there. You are faced with branding. You're faced with something that has been created in an advertising agency, not the true essence of the company, not genuine stories from the inside. So last year, as Jack mentioned, I started a company called Provenance, and what we've been doing is exactly this, which is helping companies turn themselves inside out, helping them share stories about the true internal workings of the company. So similar to kind of Kickstarter, getting people to share that amazing value that's going on inside on the outside. And our mantra is really share more about the things you make, know more about the things you buy, aligning the process of making and creating a product, be that the design process that went into creating that garment, be that the person that spent all day trying to source this particular kind of manufacturer so that you can have that particular color of button or whatever it might be, across all kinds of sectors. But taking those stories of creating something and turning that into the way people discover something, the way people experience a product. So we've been opening up all kinds of information for companies, so things like where things are made, supply chains, also materials, what kinds of materials and why materials were chosen and what kind of challenges were faced in finding those materials. But also who, the people behind products, the faces behind the creation of things, and the companies. Who are the founders? What's the history of this company? Because increasingly more and more we're seeing shoppers want to shop by new metrics. Because value, as I said at the beginning, is different for all of us. And some of us value, we want to support a company. We don't just want to buy from it. So we've been creating lots of digital tools, mainly for e-commerce initially, just because that was kind of the easiest thing to do. Looking at creating new metrics for searching on e-commerce, so things like being able to browse by what's made locally to you, etc. And applying that to small brands, but also larger retail as well. But one thing that's been really fun is we're now starting to use the data we're gathering in store. So this is just one example, which is bringing the making process from the supply chain live onto a till receipt. So when you check out at the till, you get the pictures of that product being made. So everything we're doing is slowly working and helping companies to turn themselves inside out, whether it's a big set of data, but trying to use that data in a way that empowers consumers to shop with their values as well. So I've talked to you about 3 trends. So we've had the Internet of Things and the digital weaving its way into the physical. We've had decentralization, powered by the blockchain, Bitcoin being the most famous application of that, and also decentralized manufacture, powered by digital fabrication. And then lastly, we've had the open movement, so open data and the kind of lowering of the smokescreen between the internals of a company and shoppers. But what's the takeaways? So first of all, I'd say with the Internet of Things trend, which is really flying around, people are talking about it a lot. I think an important thing is to just experiment with it. And you can do quite lo-fi things. So the store receipt I showed you, I mean, there's no new technology in the store there. What it is just some code, just some digital technology, which is turning a receipt actually into quite a smart thing. And I think that's the key message here, is experiment with technology, buy yourself a kit of something, grab yourself some iBeacons, you know, $100 or something, and you can have really incredible connectivity in your store. But experimenting on a small level can really be transformative here. The second theme, I think, is all around paving the way to be more locally responsive. We're going to see technology enable this quite quickly over the next 10 years. So I think it's quite important to have that in mind now. Think about your stores as centers for communities. They're places where people go, and the people that go there probably live or are visiting around the area. So let's make that store reflect that area and have a more local feel. And then the last one, open and really collaborative. So it's kind of less about seeing you and your consumers or the shoppers that shop with you, and more about seeing it as a conversation and communicating what you really do inside. So it's less just sort of saying, it's more doing and then saying what you're doing. And I think that's been seen throughout a kind of change in advertising over the past sort of 5-6 years. There's also been a lot about that, and technology is really fueling that too, fueling real experiences and things being really created, and then have the shoppers talk about it, have the shoppers tell your story, have them talk about it on social media. That's the way we communicate now. So thank you very much for listening to my three technology themes, and I hope that sort of got you thinking about the fuel for the future of retail and what we can start to do. You've got 3 other amazing speakers coming up now, so do tweet me if you've got any questions or would like to have any more information about any of the technologies I spoke about this morning. Thank you very much.